1798, a young Kentucky boy named John Howgins. Howgins' family lived down there on the Green River. One morning, John Howgins wakes up and his daddy tells him, he says, "Boy, I want you to go out hunting today and find us something for supper tonight." So John's daddy goes over up above the mantle, above the fireplace, gets down that Kentucky long rifle, hands it to John, and sends him out here in the woods. Now John sees a few rabbits and a few squirrels. He thinks, I don't mess around no piddling rabbit squirrels. He sees some deer and turkey. Thinks to himself, Ma been cooking a lot of deer and turkey lately. I don't want that for supper. But then, folks, he saw it. Oh, did he see it? He saw this big black bear. And John thought to himself, oh, if I could shoot that bear, Pa would be proud of me, and we could eat off that a while. So he raises up that Kentucky long rifle. He aims and fires and shoots that bear. But he doesn't kill it. He just wounds it. And that wounded black bear is said to have ran down into the entrance of the cave. John followed it in and rediscovered the Mammoth Cave. Now, as I mentioned already, I'm born and raised in the fine state of Kentucky. And this is a story that I do not believe is true. I'm going to tell you why. Number one, I don't think John Howgins is from Kentucky. Because, see, had he been a true Kentuckian, he'd killed a bear in one shot. I believe I read the other days up north there, around Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, up in there, yeah. Also, Kentuckians, we smart enough not to chase a mad wounded bear down a big black hole in the ground. Did John Howgins shoot a bear, folks, and chase it into the cave? We don't know. It's a story. There's no evidence that said he did it, but there's also no evidence that he didn't do it either. So it is what it is, a story. See, you get it. Once you get it, there's nothing right to do. It's called, you saw some wooden boxes. Over here you see these logs, and then we're going to see some more boxes in a few minutes. These logs here are actually wooden pipes. And this goes back to 1812. Now, at this point in history, we're a young nation. We have just gained our independence a few years prior to this from the British. But even though we have this independence, we still are dependent on them. We imported a lot of items from them, and one such item was gunpowder. Well, in 1812, the British are starting to get on our nerves. They're attacking our ships out in the ocean, making our sailors join their navy and so on, and we just got fed up with it. And in 1812, we declared war on them. And I can't ever remember the name of that war. Can y'all help me? Y'all remember what the name of that war was? War of 1812. Yeah, that's it. That's it. You'd be surprised, people that don't know that. I did teach one history class in my whole career. I was an industrial arts teacher, but I put on a test one time, what year was the War of 1812? And students miss it. But anyway, I really doubt that when you declare war on the country you're getting most of your gunpowder from, they're going to let you have it anymore. So we had to produce our own. And in the cave, here at Mammoth Cave, there's a mineral called saltpeter. You mix saltpeter with charcoal and sulfur, and it makes black gunpowder. So what they did in a few moments on this next hill, you're going to see on the right side these big wooden boxes. They would fill these boxes with dirt. That's where the nitrates were. And then in this bottom set of pipes, they brought water into the cave. They would then soak and saturate that dirt in water for about 7 days. And then out of that, this thick slurry would ooze out of that dirt and water. And then in that top set of pipes, they would send this slurry back to the surface. Once they got it to the surface, they boiled this in great big old kettles. And when they boiled it and boiled it down, it would crystallize. It actually looked like salt. They then took those crystals, shipped them all the way up north, up there to Delaware, to the E.I. DuPont Company. You may be familiar with that company, still around today. And he's the one that processed it into gunpowder. Just out of Mammoth Cave, we believe well over 400,000 pounds of saltpeter were taken out of the cave during the war. Now, when the war ended, we went back, in 1815, we went back to importing gunpowder. It was actually cheaper to import than produce, and the extraction of the saltpeter here at Mammoth Cave just simply came to an end. And they just walked off and left everything where it is. These logs, these pipes you see, the boxes we'll see in a few moments, is the original wood. The temperature in the cave averages in the mid-50s. Humidity's around 70%, and it's dry down here. So it has preserved everything. So these pipes and logs you see here are over 200 years old. I had now been working at Mammoth Cave for about 180 years. I think it has preserved me very well. I feel good. I just can't get the hair to grow anymore. But other than that, that's the only thing wrong. I think I'm doing okay. And y'all better brace yourself, because what I'm about to tell you is going to blow your mind. Y'all ready? You're not going to believe this idea. Can y'all believe that in 1816 the owners of the cave had this wacky idea that people would come here from all over the world, buy a ticket, and tour this big black hole in the ground? Yeah, who would do something like that? Looks like maybe about 30 of you. But the first guided tour started in 1816. Been touring this old hole in the ground for over 200 years. But back then it was much different. You were led through the cave by an African-American slave carrying one of these. This is a replica of a whale oil lantern. Now, I've lived my whole life in Kentucky, and I'm still looking for that first whale. But what they do is in the morning, they'd go to the hotel kitchen. And see, back in here in Kentucky, folks, we like to fry stuff. Oh, yeah, we'll fry anything. You take a green mater, you take an Oreo cookie, we'll throw her in deep fry. Y'all ever had a fried green mater? If you haven't, you need to get one. They're really good. Not good for you, but they're good. Bacon grease. Oh, don't you dare throw away bacon grease. My grandma would whip you if you threw away bacon grease. You use that to cook your beans and your taters and your cornbread. So there's always grease, and they would use that for their fuel. But the average person wasn't coming to Mammoth Cave back then. Average American wasn't getting vacations. They was working every day to survive. So the rich and wealthy came here. And the men came in the cave in their three-piece suits and their top hats. Ladies had on big old dresses with lace-up high-heel boots. And they wasn't walking on what you all walking on. No, they were crawling and climbing over piles of rock like this. So imagine being in here in your Sunday best, crawling and climbing over this stuff. But your guides back then, see, they didn't have a lot to talk about. You know, they didn't know the geology of the cave, and who cares about that saltpeter extraction? That just happened. Nobody cares about that. But they became storytellers. And they would look around in the cave and see shadows and rocks that would help with their storytelling. And y'all may have seen this black stuff on the walls here. This black that you see is gypsum, calcium sulfate. Now, gypsum only grows in a dry cave, but it's in its natural state, it's very white. But why this is black is the prehistoric man was in here with torches. These old grease lanterns in the 1800s, they smoked real bad. The gypsum has absorbed that smoke. But you notice up high, you can see big blotches of gypsum. But look, when I move down to the floor, up to where they could reach, you could see where the prehistoric man was beating and chipping this gypsum off these walls, all up through here. Now, we don't know what they were doing with it, but you'll see up to where they could reach it, they were chipping it off the walls. But if you look at the gypsum, you can see things. Y'all remember I told you up on the surface about that John Howgens fella shooting that bear and chasing it into the cave? Y'all remember that story? Yeah. I know where the bear is. There he is right there. There he is. Yeah, he's on top of John Howgens. Or is the bear, or John Howgens on top of the bear? Right over here, a mermaid. Long tail, arm in her hand, playing with some bubbles. Right there. There's the mermaid. Right here's the Grim Reaper. I'm sorry, right in the wrong one. Grim Reaper right there. Carrying his lantern. And he's pointing to the underworld. I got bad news. That's where we're going in a little bit. And there's a mother with her small child. There's the mother playing with her small child right there. Right over here, we got Santa's sleigh and his reindeer. And then Snoopy over sitting on his doghouse. But behind me, folks, the most famous rock formation in the Mammoth Cave, the Giant's Coffin. There's the coffin. There's the lid of the coffin. Now, back in the day, the guides could take their lantern and create the illusion of the lid of the coffin raising up and down. And I'm going to cheat and use my flashlight today, but if y'all see where my finger is, watch that shadow up top, and I'll see if I can raise it lower for you. Sometimes I'm better at this than others. Oh, I've already got it. Look over there. Yeah, y'all see the shadow at the top? See, I'm lowering it down. I'm raising it back up. Yeah, look at that. What about that? Y'all see it? Everybody see it? Yeah. All right, I'm going to close it one more time. You tell me you see that at Disney World. If you do, you're paying a lot more for it, I guarantee that. Well, folks, before we go, I am going to give you some bragging rights real fast. I'm going to give you an opportunity to go home and tell your family and friends that you were able to see and experience all 426 known miles of Mammoth Cave. But I need you to help me. If you can turn off your cell phones and cameras, anything puts out light, turn those off. So, sir, if we could turn your camera off there. But anything puts out light, if we pass the stone building, I'm going to tell you what that was used for at our next stop. But I ask that you please not lean up against this or touch it. It's a very old artifact, and I will tell you what it was for. And also, this historic route, this route we're on now, in the summertime, we run about 10 of these tours a day with over 100 people on them. So you're running 1,000 people through here a day. Those old dirt trails required a lot of work. Right. Now, back where we went, not that many people go back there. So, yes. All right, folks, you can tell we're getting to low places now. And we got these stairs coming up in front of me called the Steps of Time. Called that because of how much time it takes to walk down them. That's why they're called that. Down the last, I don't make this stuff up. I think you can tell I embellish it a little bit. But at the last few steps down, it gets low, and I think it's easier to go down those last few steps kind of sideways or backwards, but whatever works best for you. But I've heard of them, but no, it's still water. See what happened here, folks, you had this water in that big passageway found a little crack. And then that ate away at that crack, and this water started coming down. And all up and down that big passageway, there's all these little passageways like this. That's where the water left. And a lot of folks think when I say the water left, it was like one day it's there, the next day it's gone. Well, that wasn't the case. We're talking thousands and thousands of years, millions of years of that water leaving up there and coming down here. So we're basically on a stream that has branched off from a much larger body of water. So, all right, folks, we'll keep going. And this passageway is named Black Snake Avenue. Black Snake Avenue.
These rocks could put a pretty good knot on your head, couldn't they?
Well, that's why they give us this cool hat. You see my hat in the light, it's scarred up pretty good. I bump it. Every spring, when I don't work much in the wintertime. When I come back in spring, I always get a new hat. And I try to keep from banging it into stuff, but within a week or two, it's already scarred up. So. I take a lot of pride in wearing this uniform and this flat hat. When I started working here 15 years ago, I started with a much different group of rangers, a much older group of rangers. And a lot of the things I do, I modeled after them, and they took pride in the uniform. Having your boots shined and your shirt pressed and things like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because I'm in front of the public. I'm representing the Park Service. And I think
it's much more professional looking.
It is, and I take pride in this thing. Now, I don't shine my boots every day. I mean, it depends on what chores I do. But when I first started here, them old guys, they'd get on you about your boots. You better shine them boots and you come back tomorrow.
Now those little scalloped areas there, what causes that? Water,
Just water,
where the water
yeah,
flows?
see, these passageways here, the See how smooth rock is? This is full of water. This passageway was completely filled with water, whereas the upper one was not.
You know, it's amazing what a drop of water can do.
Oh yeah, it takes time, but it can. Just a
Time
little
and
drip
a drop of water can do a lot of changes.
Water is one of the most powerful natural resources we have. Yeah, it drips over there on the right side, folks. Did you notice I walked on the left? Good Ranger would have told you that, wouldn't it? Yeah, I want y'all to experience the cat.
I felt the drip, but I thought it was my imagination.
No, it drips back here. On the right side, I do. That's why I walk on the left.
I'm amazed how dry it is down here, though.
It goes back to the sandstone caprock roof we had.
How old is the writing that we have on the wall there?
I mean, you can look right here. There's a 1929. There's a 1842. 1899. So it varies. Now, there shouldn't be anything after 1941. There is, but it shouldn't be. Because honestly, after 1941 became a national park, it did become a felony. So. And they take the right names in here. We had some people wrote their name in here this summer. They called on them. And I would just say the price of their ticket went up substantially. It should have. Should have. That's your historic graffiti.
They were using soot.
Hang on to that question. Folks, we're coming up on the bottomless pit.
Wow.
How far?
About 107. This is the actual bottomless pit right here.
Now, what was that back there where the water was dripping down?
Hang on to that question. I'm going to answer those.
Okay.
That way I can answer for everybody.
Okay.
That's that. Next stop, I may give a lot of geology questions. I'm going to answer. I normally don't talk geology on this, but I'll
I think
work
that
for
makes
y'all.
it. I like the geology.
That's what I'll ask questions. I'll answer when we stop. No, that's okay. I say I work for y'all. We talk back. We talk back. Folks, we got some more load places coming up. So watch your head.
In the wintertime, it's still 60 degrees in here, isn't it?
Mid-50s. Mid-50s. Watch your head, folks. Yeah, back in here it is. Yeah, you come here in January, February, it feels just like it does today. But up around that door, it's not. Because he's always air blown.
Uh-huh.
It's cold at that door. It's cold at that door in the summertime. In the winter, again, I don't work just kind of here and there, but if it's real cold up on the surface and we have a coat on, you get down here and get hot.
Well, I noticed you not wearing a jacket.
No, I don't in the summertime when I lead a tour, because I'm moving and talking, I pay attention to it. Now, sometimes when I trail a tour, I'll wear a jacket
Yeah.
because I'm just standing around back
Uh-huh.
there. And also, if something were to happen that I had to be down here, one of my good friends that works here a few years ago, he had a medical emergency in the back of a tour, and he had to wait for medical people to come, and he sat with this person for over an hour, and he didn't have a jacket. And he said by the time they got there, he said, I was getting pretty darn cold.
Yeah, it can
And,
get chills, can't
well,
hardly
and I have
move.
people all the time say, I'd love this in my house. Well, do you leave your air conditioning on mid-50s? Gosh, my wife keeps ours on about 72 and she freezes me. But it gets cold down here just standing around. Now I don't pay attention. I'm moving, walking around now.
And this is sand right here, isn't it?
Just sediment from the water that was running through here. All right, folks, we're at the Fat Man's Misery.
All right.
You'll find out quickly how it got its name.
Fat guy walking.
We haven't got to the heart of it yet. we just getting started, sir.
Oh, I see the sign now. Oh,
There's a sign. Be forewarned.
Mike, you good, baby?
Yeah. This is like cross faces, man.
Yeah, it's like working.
I'm at work now.
We just say it. Some people polish the rocks a little more than others do. And that's okay.
Watch your knees. Should have brought some knee pads. Oh, wow. Man, I can't fit there, man.
That's not an option, sir.
I can't.
You're going to fit. At this point, that's not an option. I've taken people through here a whole lot bigger than you, so you're fine.
Anybody ever got stuck in here?
As I said, some people polish the rocks more than
Yeah,
others.
let's put them on top and roll them. It'll be all good.
I actually have people that are really tall struggle through here more than that. I had a fellow in the store one time, I know he was over 7 foot. And up here, tall man's misery, he struggled. He had to get on his knees.
He's dying.
Wow.
He just dodged.
Now, folks, up ahead, we got tall man's misery, and there's going to be a step we take up. Once we step up, the ceiling comes down. Now, good thing tall man's misery doesn't go very far, but once you make that step up, be ready to go down. And it might be a little slippery up here, so watch your step as well.
It's like Doc's ductwork. Toilet pipes and stuff in the crawl spaces.
Right here, folks, when you make this step up, get ready to go down.
Watch your feet. Huh? Watch your feet.
Oh, I see.
Almost off my shoe.
I'm glad that was short.
We do have restrooms if needed. And I emphasize if needed.
This is like getting on the interstate right here.
I'm going to wait here a moment, folks, get a few more. I want everybody to hear. Actually, there's Mike right now. So, folks, I normally don't talk geology on this trip, but I've been getting a lot of questions about it, and that's fine. I mean, I work for you. But again, Mammoth Cave, all this rock is limestone. And this limestone is from an ancient sea that covered all this part of Kentucky. Sir, if you don't mind, turn your light off, please. But all this is from an ancient sea. And all the plant and animal life that lived in that sea died over time. They would float down in all the sediment. And then the sea dried up and disappeared, but all those plants and animals in the sediment compacted together in this major layers of limestone. Now up on the surface, what happened after this limestone was laid down is rivers start appearing. Up north, you folks from Michigan, up there up in the Michigan area of today, there was glaciers melting, bringing rivers here. And those rivers found cracks and crevices in this limestone. And with the weak form of carbonic acid, it started to eat away at these. And those cracks kept getting bigger and bigger, and that water simply came underground. Again, it's a dried up underground river bed. Now that carbonic acid though, it's the same as the carbonic acid that you have in your soft drinks. And the only thing is carbonic acid in your soft drinks is a whole lot more powerful than what created our cave. So next time y'all go to McDonald's and get you a 40-ounce Coca-Cola, you think about that. But the acid had something to do with it. Here was just a very weak form. Now that big passageway we walked in, it's called Broadway. That large passageway was not completely filled with water. It went up probably about halfway up the walls when we were up there. The rest of that was from collapsed rock. But when that water, think of a river on the surface. I'm going to use the Ohio River. Off of the Ohio River branches other rivers. The Green River, the Cumberland River. Off those rivers branch other streams. And when we came down from that large part behind Giant's Coffin, we came down another branch of water. And that water, now those streams that branch off from the river, they go much faster. The water coming through these passageways was going very fast. When y'all went through Fat Man's Misery, did you see little scoops in the rock? Those are called scallops. And when they see those scallops very small, water was running through Fat Man's Misery very fast. But look at the scallops here. Look at them here. Look how big they are. This room was also full of water, but here it was going slow. So you see the large scallops, slow water, small scallops, fast water. But that Fat Man's Misery, where it branched off from the larger tributary, most streams go much faster. So folks, I could spend the rest of this tour talking about cave geology, but it boils down to three basic things. Limestone, water, and time. And you put those three together is what we get here. And Fat Man's Misery was carved out by water. Now there was sediment in it. They went and dug it out where we could walk through. But water's carved. Everything we've seen today was made by water. Limestone and water. You're an expert cave geologist. Now my co-workers that really geek out on geology don't like it when I say that, but that's the basis. Now there's more to it than that. I was asked about earthquakes. If an earthquake was occurring right now, would you all want to be right here?
Yeah.
I would. Folks, there could be an earthquake going on right now. We'd have no idea. Earthquake activity happens 80 feet below the surface. We're over 300 feet right here. An earthquake has to have solid rock for the shock waves. And my watch band is the cave. When it gets to that hollow of the cave, there's nothing for the shock waves to go through. It skips over top of it. So believe it or not, we are much safer here than people on the surface. When they were extracting saltpeter, you had the New Madrid earthquake in the winter of 1811, December of 1811, went into 1812. They said in the first big room up there, they could tell something was going on. And folks, they said if there'd been a Richter scale, this earthquake would have been a 9 or more. It must suppose they made the Mississippi River run backwards and bells ring as far away as Boston. And they could tell something was going on. And it said that the workers ran outside and they saw all the trees and everything falling. What y'all think they did? Came back in the cave. And we have tremors from from the New Madrid fault line here in Kentucky. I've never been in the cave when we've had one. But I've had co-workers that said they were down here and never knew a thing ever happened. So I guess my advice is if there's ever an earthquake, y'all need to find an 80-foot deep cave and get in that thing really fast. And I live 8 minutes from the visitor center. And I got a key. Guess where I'm coming. And I tell my wife if she can get in the car fast enough, she can go with me. Of course, she knows where I keep my cave keys, and she may beat me over here. So, I was asked about the writing you've seen that kind of looked like spray paint. The writing, that was done by candle smoke. Again, we think that the visitors would give the slave guides a tip, and they would sell them a candle. And then they would take the candle and they would smoke their names up there. So it's just candle smoke or smoke writing. But I talked a little about enslaved people, and just to kind of finish up here, there was a fellow named Stephen Bishop. Stephen Bishop was brought to Mammoth Cave in 1838. And Stephen, not only did he do cave tours, he started to explore the cave. And he was the first person to cross the bottomless pit. That was the second pit we went across. And the stories, there's two stories. One said Stephen took a cedar log. Another said he took a wooden ladder. Either way, and then he crawled and climbed across that bottomless pit. But when he crossed that pit from here, he was the first person to see all this. First person to go through Fat Man's misery. Going back where Mike passed, where Mike is, that's where the rivers are. He discovered the rivers in the cave. So Stephen is very important to our history, not just because he was a guide, but because he explored a lot of the cave. And a large majority of what we tour today, he found it. So he's a very important person. And when he went down to the river, he found that in the river there was these fish and crayfish. And these fish were about 4 or 5 inches, but he noticed something. They didn't have eyes. They had an eye socket like us, but they didn't have an eyeball. They're also translucent. You shine your flashlight on them, you can't see through them, but you can see their heart beating and see their blood pumping through their bodies. Their life is in total darkness. They're never exposed to light, so they don't have pigment in their skin. They don't need an eyeball. And Stephen was the first to discover these animals. And he actually called this room right here River Hall because it's close to the river. That room up there at the end of Fat Man's, he called it Great Relief Hall, not because there was a bathroom there, but what a great relief to get out of Fat Man's. And folks, when he went through Fat Man's misery the first time, he didn't walk through there. It was filled with sediment. They dug it out. He crawled through there on his belly. Imagine going through there on your stump belly with a lantern pushing it in front of you. Think about if it dead-ended at the end of it. He'd have had to back out of that thing. Now, luckily it didn't do that. But Stephen is really important to our history. And other tours I go in more detail about him. But he's just an important person. But you can see some more names in here. They would take their knives and carve their names. I always find it interesting. There's a couple of chiropractic businesses up there that are going through Fat Man's misery. You tell me that's not advertising. But we think, again, the enslaved guides, we think they took tips from people to let the people do that. And Stephen Bishop, I mentioned for some of you got here, he actually made enough money off tips that him and his wife Charlotte were able to purchase some property. So they did have some advantages. They were not freed men by no means. But, folks down in the deep south, they weren't getting tips, weren't getting paid and stuff. Stephen Bishop and others were allowed to learn to read and write. And Dr. Cron, who had the TB hospital, owned Stephen and his wife Charlotte, and he owned actually 5 other enslaved people. So, any other questions? Anything else?
I do.
Yes.
Are there stalagmites and stalactites?
Not many. We don't have many, and the reason we don't, on top of this limestone, there's a cap rock of sandstone in shape. That's why it's been dry on this trip. That sandstone and shell cap rock acts as a roof over the cave. And that's what makes us the longest cave system in the world. If we didn't have that cap rock, we would not be. We would have a bunch of those formations, but it's like the roof on your house. It keeps that water out. Now, up here in a few minutes, we're going to get to a place called the Mammoth Dome. The Mammoth Dome, you'll see a few there. And folks, these pits we went over in Mammoth Dome, the reason there's water coming down those, something broke the cap rock, probably a sinkhole. But that water came down fast, and that's what made the domes and pits. To make stalactites, the water's got to drip. And up here, when we kind of go up the dome, you'll see a few where the water's dripping. But we're not known for stalactites. I told somebody earlier, if you come to Mammoth Cave to strictly see stalactites and stalagmites, you're going to leave us disappointed. We're known for this. And I like to go onto the trip advisors and stuff. I love reading what people write about us because sometimes they're humorous. But they're always comparing us to some cave called Carlsbad. Y'all ever heard of it? I never heard of it. And people talk about it all the time. I think it's down there in New Mexico somewhere. I don't know. People talk about that cave all the time. But see, that cave was formed differently than us. They don't have, I know one, they don't have a cap rock. That's why that is a decorative cave. And I've never been there. But we have formations, but where we have them, there's no, either the cap rock's not there or it was broken. So that's the reason we got a roof on top of us. Well, folks, I'm going to go ahead. We're going to get to a place called the Mammoth Dome. That's where the Tower of Stairs is. The Mammoth Dome, in my opinion, is one of the most spectacular places in the cave. When we get to the tower stairs, these stairs are not straight up. There's little landings. If you all need to stop, catch your breath, you by all means do that. A trick us rangers have is if you need to stop and catch your breath, but you don't really want to embarrass yourself, just point at something. Because I go about 3 months, I don't work in the wintertime, and when I come back after them 3 months, I'm doing a whole lot of pointing going up that tower. So. But before we go, I do have to show you something. Right over here, folks, y'all need to look at that step right there. That's the most important step on this trip, because it's the last step down. Follow me. Bishop was the first person that found it. We found a lot of coral, swimming corals. There were great piranhas and we found sharks in the rock. But basically just aquatic sea creatures. Again, folks, if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to get those on the surface. But at this time, on behalf of the National Park Service, Mammoth National Park, my friend and partner Mike, and myself, Ranger Eric, I want to thank you for letting us spend time with you today. Folks, where them travelers take you, y'all be safe going home or to your next destination, and always come back again and see us. But if not, go visit your other national parks. And And folks, I say it all the time, I'm a blessed person. I got the best job in the world. I can't believe sometimes they pay me to do this. But without you all, I don't get to do it. And for that, I thank you. And I'll leave with one last thought. Stephen Bishop, I talked about a little bit, that discovered a lot of our cave we toured today. Stephen called Mammoth Cave a grand, a gloomy, but yet a peculiar place. I thank you for letting me show it to you today, folks. It's been my pleasure. Y'all have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.